Hello, I'm Debbie Simmonds with eXp Realty in the Central Vancouver Island real estate market area. Today we have with us Tammy Leslie from Palmer Leslie Chartered Professional Accountants. Tammy, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi there. As Debbie said, I'm Tammy Leslie. I'm a partner at Palmer Leslie Chartered Professional Accountants. I'm currently sitting in the Ladysmith office. We also have an office down in Duncan. And we're working tax season, even though we can't actually see people. It's been kind of a strange year, but we're making it work.
Yeah, so the public has a lot of questions, especially business people. This is probably the toughest time in the history of mankind for your clientele, I'm sure, Tammy. And so Tammy gave me some questions ahead of time of the most prevalent questions that her clients are asking. So we want to share that with you today. So the first question is, what do I qualify for to survive the pandemic?
So normally this time of year, I have a lot of personal tax clients coming in and corporate tax clients coming in, and they're asking me all kinds of questions about what can I deduct and how do I claim this and is that taxable? But this year has been completely different because most of the business owners are just trying to keep their businesses operating. So I spent about the first 3 weeks starting on March 15th, taking a lot of calls from clients going, what do I qualify for? How do I get it? What do I do? Oh my gosh. So there's kind of four main things. Now, I could talk for hours about all the stuff that's available, which is great. I mean, thank you, federal, provincial, and municipal governments for providing so many things for us to access. So I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights on the ones that I think are most important for business people. The biggest one right now is this, what they call the CEWS, the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. This is where you can get up to 75% of wages for employees, including the shareholder employees. It's not just the arm's length ones. The acronym CEWS, it doesn't roll off the tongue very well. We still haven't figured out as accountants what the code word would be. I know with the CERB, we have CERB CEWS, it's like coos, coos. We haven't come up with anything. So we just call it the Emergency Wage Subsidy. Basically, to qualify, the final version of it was your revenues had to have dropped at least 15% in March of 2020 compared to either March of 2019 or an average of January and February of 2020. So they've made it quite available to most businesses at this point. The online portal for that one opened up this past Monday on April 27th. And I have so far done 2 applications, one for my own company and one for a client. And I've learned a lot just in that process. So there's a lot to it. There's a big calculation you have to do to figure out what your subsidy is. So if anybody needs help with that, I urge you to reach out to your accounting professional and ask for help. The other one that's kind of tied to that is the temporary 10% wage subsidy. This is a 3-month measure that you basically withhold the income tax portion that you've taken off your employees up to certain dollar limits. $13.75 an employee and 10% of the wages are kind of the criteria. This one gets deducted off the wage subsidy, the 75%. So from what I'm reading, it looks like you actually have to apply for this one, even if you're going to go for the other one, because it gets deducted off the other one anyway. And this is something I've learned just going through the process this week.
Interesting.
The third thing is the CERB. Sorry?
Interesting.
The third thing is the CERB. Is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and that's the $500 per week, or everybody knows it as kind of the $2,000 per month. And this is probably the most pervasive one that most people, if they don't qualify under other things, will qualify for. And it's tied to the EI program for anyone that is entitled to EI. I know I walked my daughter through her EI claim when she got laid off as a server. And basically, she applied for EI, and then she got shot over into the CERB system. So even though she's technically on EI, she's getting the full $2,000 a month. She's a good example because she's not a client, so I don't have to keep her confidential. But you can also apply for it even if you don't qualify for EI. And basically, you've had to have had earnings of at least $5,000 in the last 12 months from employment or self-employment. You have had to have not quit your job voluntarily. You have to be residing in Canada and be at least 15 years old. And you can now earn $1,000 in a month while you're on that. So that was a new thing that came out in the last couple of weeks. That's the one that I think most people are on. The last thing for businesses is that what we call the CEBA. See how the rest of them, these acronyms, they roll off your tongue nicely? And the CEWS just doesn't. If anyone has any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. So that's the $40,000 interest-free loan. And if you pay it back within the timeline, which I believe is December of 2022, you get a forgivable $10,000 portion. So a quarter of it ends up being forgivable, and it's interest-free for that whole time, so long as you pay it back on time. The criteria there is that you have to have had at least $20,000 of payroll in 2019. And it's very specific that you have to enter in box 14, which is gross employee wages, on your T4 summary in 2019. And if that number isn't 20,000, you don't qualify.
So businesses
I have been talking with,
in say October won't qualify.
not unless they have 20,000 of wages in 2019 that they filed on a T4. So, and the other thing is you have to use that money for operating costs. You cannot pay down existing debt. So if you have a truck loan for your business and it's about $40,000, you can't borrow this money interest-free, pay off your truck loan. You have to use it to pay rent, utilities, payroll, that kind of thing. How that's going to be tracked, I can't speak to that. But I would think as a client, you're going to want a really clear paper trail between the money coming in and the expenses that it's going to pay. That one's applied for through your financial institution. And my understanding is the federal government actually has agreements in place with the different financial institutions to administer that program. So those are the four main ones that I think most business clients would need to know about. There are lots of other ones, but I could talk for an hour and, you know,
okay.
hit them all.
Well, those are the basics, and that's wonderful. I think that really helps people grasp an understanding of, you know, the main pillars that are there available. So we should move on to the next question. Yeah. So is anything being done to help me pay my commercial rent?
So this is the other question that kept coming up because people, you know, they wanted to cover off their operating costs, but the biggest thing that seemed to be lacking in the programs up to date was the commercial rents. Again, using my daughter as an example, she got the individual, the residential rent help because she's a low income, she's a student server, right? But there was nothing for commercial renters, such as ourselves. We have an office in Ladysmith and Duncan. They're both, we don't own the buildings, they're both rent. So what's available for someone like us? And something came out just in the last week. I'm not sure that it's even passed Parliament yet. I know they were meeting yesterday virtually, and they haven't said, or at least I haven't heard yet, but I've been at the office all morning, whether this one was actually passed. But I read it, and here's how it reads. It's called the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. So there's a bit of an acronym there for you. They've got an agreement in principle with the provinces and the territories, and it's going to cover basically 75% of commercial rent. And it's what it is. It's a forgivable loan for 50% of 3 months rent, April, May, June, for the landlords. The loans are going to be forgiven if the mortgaged property owner agrees to reduce the rent by 75%. So the landlords have to reduce your rent by 75% to get 50% as a forgivable loan. And then the tenant has to pay the other 25%. So that really, really helps someone who's, you know, really had to cut back their operations and doesn't have, you know, the full amount of rent. If they only have to pay 25% of the rent, it's probably a little more doable.
Absolutely.
How it's going to affect the property owners, I haven't had anybody approach me on that. I'm assuming that the property owners are going to be applying for mortgage deferrals to help cover their 25% that they're going to have to give. It's only available at this point to mortgaged property owners. If you're mortgage free, if you've worked hard and paid off your building, you don't qualify, unfortunately. And it's available only to tenants who are paying less than $50,000 a month for rent and have had a reduction of pre-COVID revenues of at least 70%. So you have to be way down in your revenues before you qualify for this one. And it's available for small business, not-for-profits, and charities. They say it'll be operational by mid-May. So it's not; those are not the final. It's not the final version, I don't think, but that's what's been proposed at this point. So it is some help for people who are still trying to operate but are way down in their revenues.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be a really big one for our small businesses. Okay, so
yeah, I know a lot of people are struggling.
Yes. So on to our third and final question. When do I have to file my income tax return, corporate tax return, estate return, or GST return, etc.?
Yeah, so this is the one that's hitting us as well, as people are, because they've changed all the deadlines for everything, and they're all different. I mean, they were all different to begin with, but now they've pushed everything back and everyone's confused. I actually even had a client email me this morning about the GST. She's like, do I really not have to pay till June 30th? Am I reading that right? I said, yeah, that's how it reads. The only thing I'm going to say about this is there's a really good website on the CRA's website. And the best way to get it is to Google due dates during COVID-19. And then when the selections come up, select the one that says income tax filing and payment dates under CRA and COVID-19. And it'll give you the majority of the deadlines.
Okay.
The GST is the only one that doesn't seem to be listed on that website or on that page. And then I found the GST one yesterday just by Googling GST payment deadlines COVID-19 or pandemic, and it'll come up.
Okay.
But the basics are income tax returns for personal individuals are now June 1st. Any balances owing don't have to be paid till September 1st. The corporations are put off. GST is put off. But it depends when your year-end lines up and what your due dates are. So I can't give you exact examples on those, but you need to go and look it up based on when you normally would file, and it'll tell you.
Okay.
As far as I know, payroll due dates are staying on the 15th of the month, but then with all the subsidies coming in, you're getting that stuff covered anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, well, that was tremendous information. Thank you so much, Tammy. That really does make things crystal clear. Tammy has been my accountant for several years now, and she's amazing, as you can see. Whenever I have any questions, like I need help with valuations on business listings or advice on whether a property attracts GST or not, or even for my own personal and business accounting, I go to Tammy for all of it, and she's amazing. So I have all the confidence in the world in Tammy. So thank you, everybody. My name's Debbie Simmonds, eXp Realty. If you need any real estate, you have any real estate needs, please give me a call, 250-246-0708. Tammy?
And this is Tammy Leslie signing off. Your local accountant. If you need any help, we're here working. You have to call us or email us. The office number is 250-245-1429.
Thank you so much, Tammy.
You're welcome.